The following is a conversation. It has the features of any conversation, such as imperfectly expressed thoughts, ill-considered opinions, and the notions of several sleep-deprived brains. Try not to get your stethoscope in a twist about it.
What's your shirt? The appendix.
Oh, there used to be an art website for students, and I think it's still there, but I don't think anybody's posted.
Didn't they revive it this year? I went to a meeting. They were going to get it started up again.
That would be good.
I remember reading something about that.
It might be back in business.
That would be good. I mean, it was a great idea, and I think students have really great ideas, but unfortunately, when they leave, they have to find somebody to take over that idea, and it doesn't always happen the way they want it to.
Yes, that requires knowing people.
Yes,
and having friends.
But also, like, people sometimes, well-meaning people say they want to take over a project, and then life gets
that's fair.
Too
yes.
I don't know.
Learn to say no to things. But also say yes. So you don't miss out.
You have great solutions to these problems, Faith. That's why you're on the show.
Yeah. Critical thinker.
Say no to all the things and yes to all the things.
Yes. The perfect advice.
Meandering in the margins of medicine, it's the Shortcoat Podcast.
Weird news,
fresh views,
helpful clues, and interviews.
By students, for students.
Subscribe to our weekly show at theshortcoat.com.
Welcome back to the Shortcoat Podcast, the show that gives you an inside look at medical school from the students drinking from that fire hose. It happens to be a production of the University of Iowa Carver College of Medicine. I'm Dave Etler. With me in the SCP studio, some cultural icons of medical school. She wakes up every morning feeling like P. Diddy. It's PA2 Faith Anton.
That's true.
Dang straight.
She's a grown woman. She can do whatever she wants. It's M2 Olivia Jenks.
Can I?
This girl is on fire. It's M4 Sarah Costello.
Sure it's not Alicia Keys?
Hey,
Start singing.
My camera's not aimed right. That's not how that there. Okay. That's better. This is a high quality production. And what a man. What a mighty good man. It's M2 Trent Gilbert.
Hey, everyone.
Do you know what the theme of the introductions today is?
Superheroes.
No. It's music. It's lines from...
I even alluded to that with the Alicia Keys bit. Okay,
yes,
got it.
You were Kesha, I think.
Oh.
You were a Kesha song.
I like Kesha.
I think you were Beyonce, Olivia.
Yes.
And Sarah was Alicia Keys.
Nice.
And you were either a 60s band or the 60s girl group or from the 90s Soul to Soul.
Yeah, the last times people said "what a man," repeatedly.
Yeah.
Dave, what are you? What's your theme song?
I didn't. What do you think? You have to tell me.
Oh gosh, now I have to
the first thing that came to my mind, you're gonna hate.
Oh, excellent.
I'm a Loser, the Beatles.
Oh,
okay. No.
The Beatles. The Beatles had a song, I'm a Loser?
Yeah. And I'm a Walrus, so.
Cuckoo-cuckoo. Okay, well, we're not going to delve too closely into that idea, but, okay.
I don't subscribe to that belief, but that was the first thing.
It's a little hard to believe at this point. It's a little hard to believe at this point, but,
I mean,
We did confirm a few shows back that you are among the top 10 most influential people.
This is true.
It's big news. The other big news that I wanted to talk about this week is in psychiatry. Recently has been the discovery that for some small number of people, schizophrenia is an autoimmune process, or at least can mimic schizophrenia and can be reversed by treating that. Did you guys read about this?
Yeah.
I was, as a layperson, sort of stunned by this idea that, so this particular patient over 20 years ago, April Burrell, was diagnosed with sudden onset severe schizophrenia after a traumatic event. I don't know what that event is. And she's been institutionalized ever since, catatonic, unaware, unblinking. And her recovery was thanks to a team of doctors, among whom was a man who, as a medical student, had met April when she was first diagnosed all those years ago. And then their second encounter, just by happenstance, surprised him because she had made no progress in 20 years despite treatment for her mental illness in the usual ways, which I imagine involve medication, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so, I guess he expected to see some difference. So he and others assembled a team of 70 researchers around the world, and they found large amounts of antibodies attacking her body and damaging her temporal lobes. And thus they discovered in 2018 that she had lupus. And after months of treatment, she woke up and was conversing and being fairly normal. I imagine for somebody who was catatonic for 20 years, there were some differences to be had, but it's remarkable that she woke up. And then and this touched off a search in New York State for more patients like her. So far in that state, researchers have discovered about 200 people with autoimmune diseases and who might respond to treatment of their autoimmune diseases.
I can see Olivia chomping at the bit here. She was a psych major.
Do you have something to say, Olivia?
Yeah. Oh, this just is so interesting to me. Mm-hmm. Like the idea that we have a subset of patients that we might be able to not only treat, but potentially cure and give them their lives back.
For one of the most difficult to treat mental illnesses.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty stunning.
And I think the article said it was not just schizophrenic patients, but also patients who have schizoaffective disorder, which is schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Okay. So I suppose it's similar, but
yeah, I think it is that she had antibodies targeting her temporal lobes.
Yeah.
And I think that can manifest in a variety of symptoms, but yeah, I think my impression, it seems as though it's a very small percent of people with neurodegenerative disorders that you can clearly identify an immune cause, but for the ones where you can, I think, there's a lot of potential for help there.
I can't imagine being the family member or that person themselves and just one day coming to and being I don't know, that would be such a shock to me. Sarah?
I have a question. So, and maybe it's in the details of the paper.
I potentially have an uninformed answer.
So, do you know what percentage that the 200 people that they've discovered
Not a clue.
are male and female?
Oh.
No, because what stood to me reading the article was that this was a female, and I think there was another female that was mentioned. And historically, females with autoimmune diseases and psychiatric diseases have been underdiagnosed. Sort of in that context, it wasn't overly surprising, and I guess I wonder how many other, what the proportion of
underdiagnosed with autoimmune or misdiagnosed because of autoimmune diseases. Interesting.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to look at a diagnostic history of autoimmune diseases, and I've heard things in the past about like the gender balance of diagnoses. I don't remember enough to make any real comment about it, but I do vaguely remember for some of these diagnoses there is more of a noticeable disparity in, I think, how it's diagnosed. And yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's not surprising.
It's been 137 years since Sigmund Freud set up private practice in Vienna.
We don't stand Sigmund Freud.
No, we don't. But I mean, look, like most doctors back then, he was doing his best. He didn't know what the hell he was talking about. He was a weirdo.
Yeah. Definitely spearheaded some things, and we've since figured out that he was quite wrong.
Right.
And correct about several.
But my point is, we still know so little about the human body and brain. I mean, especially about this particular, I feel like psychiatry in general has come a long way, but also has so much further to go. And so I wanted to just sort of talk about that idea and how medicine understands really, metaphysical concepts like self-awareness and consciousness.
Boy, you did say we were getting philosophical. Brains trying to understand brains.
Yeah.
Bring it. Yes. Love.
Okay. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the stuff that we talked about in my undergrad, and then we can share a little bit more about medical school and like CIPLA and the wonderful things that the educators do
hearing
here.
from CIPLA.
We love CIPLA.
Has he been a co-host before?
He's been on the show, yeah.
Oh
we had a really trippy discussion with CIPLA. Roseanne Cash was on the show. I don't know if you know Roseanne Cash, daughter of Johnny Cash, country singer, country star.
No
Holy
kidding.
cow.
Yeah.
Did he know her back from his rock and roll days or something like that out in California?
That would be a very
That would
CIPLA thing.
sort of be unsurprising, but no, he was a big fan of Johnny Cash, and I invited him to be on the show because she was on the show to talk about her experience with Chiari type 2
cool.
malformation, and she had come to campus to participate in this conversation about this disease. And I think it was a hookup facilitated by Hancher because she was here for a show. And anyway, it was such a really interesting discussion, especially with CIPLA, because he did the thing where he he got all metaphysical, and he's like, just the brain is, all it does is interpret the vibrations of the universe, and
we're all hallucinating reality.
Right. Like,
who's to say what reality actually is? We just share a similar hallucination.
Yeah. Really enjoyed that show.
Yeah.
Which was a while back. I don't remember what show it was. A few years ago. Go listen to it. It's good.
I'm gonna search it.
Okay. So the best analogy I ever heard was in college. And basically, I think it was one of my professors. Basically, what she said was like, we have a lot of questions about the brain, right? And there's some we can answer and there's some we can't. The biggest question is how we get all of this in front of us. Like, what is human experience? And no one has touched the big question, but lots of people can touch the smaller questions. You know, how do we go from touching something, touching my foot and then feeling it in both my finger and my foot? How do I get from brain to moving my hand or talking or swallowing or things like that? We can answer small questions, but no one has the answer to the big question. And so I thought that was probably the best way to explain it.
Yeah, I remember reading that, even making a decision, there is some question as to, whether the decision is actually made by you or whether it's already been made and somehow, can you explain
the classic free will
determinism question?
You see brainwaves 8 milliseconds before somebody has actually made a decision that they're aware of, and indicative that they've already made the decision without having been aware of it.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes,
that blows my mind.
8 years ago, I got roped into this series of free will debates sponsored by some foundation, and that was entirely one side, the side that didn't have to talk about free will. You just heard endlessly about this study. And
is it real? Is it true?
Real.
The free will debate to me is just so frustrating because, okay, let's say your brain is making the decision before you're consciously aware of it. Isn't that just how the brain works?
Yeah, but that's the point.
What you end up just debating about is you're not debating about if you have free will. You're just debating about what is free will,
and what is you? Is you the meat sack plus the brain?
Free will is what you get to decide that it is. Yeah, is the brain is you your brain? Or does it include your
brain conscience? What is it? Yeah.
I don't know. It's body and brain kind of have to exist together because your body is how you interact with the world. So your brain knows what to piece together to make sense of the world. So I don't think you just have a floating orb in Harry Potter, the big tank of brains. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. We could all be living in the Matrix.
No one would know.
Yeah. Or it's Interstellar, where you have was that a fifth dimension or some sort of
super dimensional beings?
Yes, that where he's in two places at once in different periods in his life, and then he's interacting with his self in I think it's dust. I don't even know.
Yeah, and then you get into the whole
best movie.
So now you're getting into the whole discussion of what is time and space.
Oh gosh,
we don't have time for this.
Is time purely a mental construct? Is time really linear? All that crazy stuff. What are our brains doing to construct our reality?
Electrons going places.
Yeah.
ion channels.
Yeah.
I think like in order to survive, like as humans have evolved from wherever we started, like we needed to come up with a frame in which to live our lives, and time gave us a way to measure like, oh, I need to plant these things now so I can have food. Oh, this is when the deer come out and I should go hunting then, or, you know, like survivalness. So I feel like it was at a survival basis that we measured it.
If you ever want to be confused about time, just watch like a 5-minute video about like relativity and like super relativity. It'll very quickly make you frustrated and no longer interested in thinking about time.
This dovetails with a habit I have. We were talking before the show, Faith, about how I have shitty sleep. And one of the ways I combat this is to listen to Professor Russell Stannard from the UK. And he has apparently had a series of some sort on television, or maybe a web series. I don't know. It looks television-y to me. And I found him through this YouTube channel called Unintentional ASMR. And the reason I bring this up is because he talks about all of this stuff. And for basically like an hour, explaining time and space and consciousness and what we know and what we don't know. And that's why when I...
Super relaxing and not stuff that's going to get your brain just going before you turn asleep.
But the way he talks about it is so relaxing.
Like Neil deGrasse Tyson.
So calming.
Oh, I love Neil deGrasse Tyson.
And it's like nice and slow, nice and calm, nice and relaxed. Puts me to sleep. I don't know that I've learned anything.
That's
because,
okay.
Well, you know how like I don't know. Have you ever heard like people like, oh, I'm going to listen to this while I sleep and
That's
I will
fair.
learn it. I don't think that
your
works.
Your brain like shuts down. I forget at like what level, but like your processing.
It absolutely shuts down. Yeah. I can tell because sometimes I will sort of come back. Well, like I will wake up a little bit and hear him and realize that I haven't heard a damn thing.
You've been hypnotized.
Utterly. Anyway, he talks a lot about this. So maybe in some sense I've been primed to really think about this story in a way that, you know, in this specific way.
Yeah. I was going to say maybe you have learned something. It's just like in a part of your subconscious that you haven't yet learned how to access.
That's what I mean. So my mom does hypnotherapy, and that's how she does she gets people all relaxed into that state of mind where they're almost asleep, and then tells them stuff like you need to quit smoking, or like, and it works. So maybe it's got to be in there somewhere.
It's in there somewhere, maybe. I'll take that. Anyway, highly recommended. Maybe I'll post a link to the show notes. If you have trouble sleeping, go listen to this guy.
Not a sponsor.
Russell Stannard?
Russell Stannard.
Stannard.
Stannard. He was a high energy physics professor at, I think, the Large Hadron Collider or something like that. So he's not fooling around. He's not messing around.
Yeah. Alternatively, you could subscribe to the Short Coat and listen to the Short Coat.
Now, once again, Olivia, I've been called a loser and boring.
I only listen to interesting things while I fall asleep, because if it's not interesting, then I hate it and I can't fall asleep.
That sounds very much like something I could have predicted for you.
Yeah, I have to listen to something interesting.
Okay.
Not boring.
I actually thought of a song for you, like Journey or something like Don't Stop Believing.
Okay.
There you go.
Just like stand up and you're just going for it. Who doesn't sing Journey at the top of their lungs? Yeah. Except you're not a small town girl living in a lonely world.
I'm a small town boy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm also fascinated by the idea that there's still so much more to learn. There's still much more that we need to know. You know, psychiatry came up with the diagnosis of schizophrenia, which obviously we still don't know a lot about it. We know that this one kind of case might be more common than we ever thought. It just made me think psychiatry is in its infancy.
And neurology too.
Neurology.
Most things in medicine aren't they not? That's why we're in it, to learn. We like the lifelong learning aspect. I did want to say, though, it's interesting with like this cognitive and autoimmune interaction that we learned. It was Houtman or someone, I don't know, this past semester, but a lot of autoimmune conditions people see those pop up like once you cross a certain tolerance threshold, and it's different between people. And this woman in the article, she experienced trauma, and that would probably be unimaginable stress, probably something that triggered the antibodies to, for some reason, attack where they did in her brain. And that makes sense.
Which is amazing in and of itself, because you think of like things that happen to you as sort of external events that, like, how could they affect your immune system?
It's reminding, I don't think you're talking about exactly the same thing, but it reminds me of like what we've been taught about like type 1 diabetes and how they know there's like an immune role, and usually they think there's like some kind of precipitating illness, but what determines whether the illness kicks it off or not, I don't think they know.
Well, and things like pandas too, right? So pandas is...
Oh, they're talking about the animal. I was like, what do pandas have to do with this? But I was ready to roll.
I was so excited to hear about pandas.
No, oh, sorry. Well,
I'm still excited.
It's just another disorder. Do you know more about pandas than I do?
Is that the one that's a reaction to strep infection?
Yeah. So basically, like, what I know about it is that basically people will get a strep infection as a child and then develop what amounts to ADHD and some other like psych disorders directly related to having had like the infection, which is
that's pretty insane. Wild, yeah,
and terrifying.
Yeah,
and then I feel like
because I had a lot of strep. Do you know what else I have?
Is that true?
Yes. We did do toxicology urine labs today. I'm just kidding. I didn't actually run my sample.
And then there's something about...
Oh, it's OCD.
OCD, okay.
Oh.
Pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorders associated with streptococcal infections.
Acronyms, man. Woo. And make it cute and cuddly.
I'm just, I guess I'm just wondering, like, will psychiatry and neurology just one day become one discipline?
Yeah.
There's already neuropsychiatry.
Yeah. I think you're definitely going to see more and more specific diagnoses as they, I think, better understand what individuals have.
And immunology.
Like what we're calling
immunology.
Schizophrenia is probably just huge chunk of different diseases that are manifesting with similar symptoms. And we're lumping them together because, currently the best treatments that we have, the mainline treatments are all the same for those people, but do they all have the same disease, the same underlying disease? Most certainly not.
What I think's interesting and concerning too is this person had this illness for 20 years and they were being treated for schizophrenia and nothing was working, but it took 20 years for them to sort of figure out what was going on.
Was that because we've learned more about immunity and the immune system and the effects that it can have on the...
we've known about lupus for a long time, haven't we?
Yeah.
Wasn't it kind of like by chance that they found, like, it was that one
The article said that they did like a full workup.
Yeah, but there was a doctor who was like, this is not right, that she has had no improvement over 20 years.
Yeah, the doctor who met her as a medical student, her as a medical student, came back to her 20 years later just by chance.
So it's an issue with the system.
Yeah, you would hope that you would sort of broaden your scope of testing or think outside the box a bit more after a certain amount of time.
I wonder if it's a function of just we don't know what else to do for this person, and then we stop going back to her to see what's going on.
Also has a really long history of misogyny and a lot of really terrible things happening, and I think we're still working through a lot of those things. Granted, right now the treatments that we have for a lot of these disorders are not great, but we have a history in medicine of sort of just locking people away or doing a lobotomy and just getting rid of their entire person, and these kinds of things. And so I think medicine has a long way to go, especially in the field of psychiatry, toward attaining and having the resources to find solutions.
Yeah. I think disparities are definitely very present. I have no doubt that played a role. And I think that's crazy to think about, if not for that chance circumstance, maybe she would still have been standing catatonic at the nurse's station, right? But the other thing is, I think the article probably oversimplified how easy it was to do a immune workup on her. Because,
Yes.
I mean, everything we've been taught, I mean, admittedly not very much, but rheumatology workups are like confusing and not set in stone. I mean, we've had like CBL people have come and given learning issues on like diagnosing lupus, and like, I don't remember that much, but I just remember thinking it's very not cut and dry. And I think I'm sure people had run like ANA on her at some point. So yeah, and then I guess they just never really had a reason to suspect or consider whether or not lupus was
dots were not
related to, I think.
And like,
well, I mean, the article definitely probably had to gloss over the difficulties involved in dealing with immunological problems, but the hint was, an international team of 70 people
Right.
needed to figure this out, which I don't know. The implication there is like, to diagnose one person or to figure out what's going on with one person, like it's hard to assemble a team of such a large international team to do that. And maybe that couldn't have happened earlier in history just because of the connectivity issues that we might experience trying to do that. I guess another question I have is, to sort of wrap this up, what's the lesson here for medicine? What's the lesson here for clinicians? And
I guess one thought that I just had as y'all were talking was that specifically like with April, the lupus diagnosis, like it wasn't like a typical presentation for lupus, I think. And yet like it has so profoundly affected her life, despite the fact that it doesn't look like it normally does. So nobody ever really gave it another, thought that it could have been affecting her brain, despite the fact that it typically doesn't. So for me, it's just like every patient that you see, even though you might think that they look like they have this based on whatever algorithm you have learned for diagnosing, that's not always the case. It makes it easy when it is, but it's not. Like, do your due diligence, I think, is the message to me.
Well, what does due diligence look like?
Like, pursue what the best outcome would be for the patient. Don't just like quit if you're kind of, it could be this, like, I don't know. And if you don't know, refer them to someone who might. And then, of course, you get into the access to care BS, and are they going to be able to pursue additional counsel? So just like, don't give up on patients.
I think you can follow the algorithm. The algorithms are useful if you've got someone that presents classically. If someone doesn't conform to the algorithm, think outside the box. Don't be scared to think outside your specialty and reach out to colleagues and think outside the box.
Work the problem.
Yep.
I think that we have to move away from this idea that disorders are untreatable or incurable. I think that those are very stagnant ideas. And I understand there are some positions where that person is not going to survive whatever chronic or acute disease that they have. But just declaring a diagnosis as, something that you're going to live with for the rest of your life, and having this mentality that, it's just going to, take away your human being, take away who you are and everything that you love to do. The idea that's acceptable in medicine is not okay with me. And I think we need to continue to progress on these disorders that medicine kind of has decided are so severe that we haven't been able to find any suitable treatment for.
Well, there you go. Keep at it, I guess, is the...
Keep fighting the good fight.
Keep fighting the good fight.
Yes.
Don't give up on patients. Being aware of the possibility of zebras when you're trained to look for horses.
Yeah.
Shortcoats, we love to hear from you, no matter what it's about. So call us at 347-SHORT-CT with questions, shower thoughts, complaints about your situation, whatever you like. We'll talk about it on the show. I wanted to talk a little bit about news. This is something I want to do more of. I like news. I'm a news junkie. I kind of got away from it for a while on the show, so let's talk about some news. The normal weight of a human kidney.
Oh, this.
Anyone know?
I have no idea.
What's the normal weight for a kidney?
I held one once.
Yeah.
Oh, 1 pound.
Okay.
Oh, wait, yeah, no.
That's a good
Half a pound.
2.
No, 2 pounds.
2 pounds.
No.
4 pounds.
Oh, wow.
9
kidney?
pounds. No.
Oh.
The normal weight of a human kidney is thought to be, and I gather there haven't been comprehensive measurements, but it's thought to be 160 grams, or about a third of a pound.
Oh.
Recently, Sri Lankan doctors removed a kidney stone from a retired army soldier that was more than 5 times that weight. I have a picture here that I want to show you. The kidney was the size of a grapefruit. It weighed 1.76 pounds. Faith, describe that bad boy to us for the listeners.
I was going to say it looks a bit like a grenade. I don't know.
A grenade.
Like,
I thought it looked like an avocado, but I am colorblind. I don't know if it's green.
It kind of does.
It's more red.
More
rusted iron, like a rusted iron
that's
ball
a good description.
with like barnacles on it, and
there's
some protrusion coming out of the top.
It's vaguely avocado shaped.
Yes.
And yeah, I think it was 5. It was also like 5 inches long or something like that.
It's impressive.
Oh,
yeah.
The crazy thing is, in the article, it said his kidney was still functioning.
Yeah, his kidney was like,
which is just impossible to believe looking at that.
I hope he named it. And if he did, I want to know its name.
Oh, wait, I have a joke.
Little red ball sack.
Okay, honestly, my mind did go there too. Keeping it PG. But no, that is what it looks like, listeners. Okay, joke. I have a joke. I'm usually not good at jokes. Hopefully I don't ruin the punchline. Okay, what did the kidney stone say to the kidney? That's what it was.
This is going well.
Because, kidney,
no, you don't get to explain your joke.
The ureter. Okay, sorry. I'm awful at jokes.
You don't get to explain your joke before you give the punchline. Okay. I have no idea.
Oh, really?
No.
Any ideas?
What did the kidney stone say to the kidney?
Yeah. As it's trying to get through.
Is it trying to get through?
Dude, you're in trouble.
That's pretty good.
Yes, I'm going to go with that. You're in trouble.
You're in my way.
There you go. We did it.
Yes.
We got there.
Didn't mess it up that bad. Thanks for bearing with me.
Previous record, by the way, was 1.36 pounds. So good on you.
Wait, so how much did it weigh again?
1.76 pounds.
It's impressive.
Yeah. I'll give you a last look at that for the YouTube watchers.
I want to know what that radiologist, what was their reaction when that came
like,
up?
holy shit.
Whoever ordered that, I think it's just an X. I think it said it was an
CT.
X. That looks like a CT.
And they called it which I guess CT kind of is X-ray. Yeah, it's radiation. That looks like a CT. They called it an X-ray.
CTs are X-ray.
Whatever. They're science.
A bunch of X-rays.
They're science journalists. They don't know shit. What do you want?
Yeah, whoever did that probably just spit out their coffees. Like, no way.
And immediately,
what's going on?
Immediately was excited to write this up.
I'm wondering, do you think that's contrast?
You would palpate that for sure.
Yeah, yes, that's also.
I don't
true.
know. I don't think contrast would go into the stone.
Well, no, it's not. It's not. It's a CT urogram. There's no contrast.
Right.
It lights up on its own without contrast.
I don't know what healthcare is like in Sri Lanka, but I know that in some countries, you just sort of don't have any. And so you just wait until.
I think this patient was at a military hospital.
Yeah.
I think it's.
But even then, how did you not?
The pain threshold of that.
How did you not notice? I don't know.
Wow.
Well, there you go. Here's another. The Kaiser Family Foundation News reported this week on a new American migration, which is people fleeing their states in response to legislation restricting health care for transgender people. So among the things that they said in the article, more than a quarter of trans adults surveyed by the Kaiser Family Foundation and the Washington Post said that they have moved in the last year to find more acceptance in their communities. And that was before legislation limiting the rights and medical care offered to them in states like Missouri, Florida, Texas, and here in Iowa. They're moving to places like California, Illinois, places where there have already been laws passed or laws in existence that protected transgender people and their access to health care. And, before we get any further with this discussion, for the sake of transparency, I will say that my own daughter is moving to another state this summer, partially due to this. So I sort of have a personal connection to this story.
I was listening to a similar story the other day on IPR. It was a young person had moved in with a relative that lived in a different state because they weren't accepted at school because of their gender identity.
Yeah.
And it's just heartbreaking.
I guess for the sake of making sure that we don't make any mistakes with this discussion today, I want to sort of confine things to healthcare a little bit, even though, as I said, sort of on a personal level, that frustrates me. It makes me sad.
I do think it's related, though, because these legislations that are restricting healthcare for minors, like in Iowa, and as well as the other legislations with the banning books and bathrooms and stuff, they just create this culture that's...
It's sort of difficult to see yourself being welcome.
Yeah. Well, and we talk about like these social determinants of health and everything, and the amount of stress and like just physical harm that comes to trans people, trans kids especially now, is so immense that like the harms that they're experiencing socially because of politics and non-acceptance and that kind of thing, that is directly impacting their health. Like not just their mental health, but also their physical health.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's hard to be healthy when it's hard to be healthy when you're being excluded, I guess, in some ways from healthcare. Meanwhile, at the annual meeting of the Endocrine Society, researchers presented a lot of evidence that gender-affirming hormones have big benefits. Australian researcher Brendan Nolan, for instance, performed what he called a world-first randomized, though unblinded, trial on the subject. 64 trans adults were studied. Half of them started treatment upon enrolling in the study, and half waited 3 months to start. The half who started hormones immediately experienced a decrease in gender dysphoria, depression, and suicidal ideation. And other research suggested that medical discrimination led trans people to wait for emergency care, thus causing them to present to the emergency room in worse condition than their cisgender peers. And those who elect to stop receiving hormone therapy do so for reasons other than wanting to revert to their gender assigned at birth, typically. I think among the cohort they studied, only 3 chose to discontinue hormones. And in 2 of those cases, they were because of socioeconomic reasons, like they couldn't afford their treatment, and because of the acceptance issue. So there's big benefits to being treated with gender-affirming care that we should probably pay more attention to.
I agree, and especially as physician assistants, it just wasn't something that I really grew up like talking about. But like from a learner standpoint, I think since coming to PA school, I've just been really thankful that we get to learn what we do in medicine, and that we're going to be privileged someday to make someone feel like who they are and make them feel like they belong, regardless of how we feel deep down. Like that doesn't matter at the end of the day. Just want them to be safe. What makes them safe?
If the legislators don't mess that up for us.
Right. So that's the thing. That's why we go advocate. That's why we go to the Capitol and go like knock on their doors.
Yeah. And I will say the Iowa Medical Society and the American Medical Society have really started to speak up on this issue as well, because it does get in the way of that patient-physician relationship. The legislators are making decisions that are not based on science, it's not their place to, it should be decided between the physicians and the patients, and there's no place really for the legislators to make those decisions. So they are starting to speak up more.
I think there's a lot of room for physicians to be advocates.
Yeah.
Like as it's been mentioned, there's a lot of more room for research to be done, and obviously people have to undertake that research. And then I think there's a lot more behind the scenes than just looking at the research and what's motivating all this sweeping change on a state-by-state basis. But I think it's important, that physicians just keep the conversation alive and work to combat intolerant beliefs.
Here at the College of Medicine, we have a sort of a strong advocacy emphasis. I'm not sure that's been the case for medicine in general for very long. And scientists also, maybe especially scientists, who maybe saw their jobs as, doing science and letting everybody else sort of work out the implications of that science.
Yeah, I wonder if part of that is because, well, I guess I'm just thinking of COVID now, for example. Sorry to bring that up, but just it's public opinion of care providers and healthcare. Like, I don't know if that was healthcare's, when it comes to like gender affirming like therapy or treatments, if it's an avoidance of negative opinion from the public, if that's just like something that healthcare wanted to avoid. Not saying that's justified, but I don't know if that's a possibility.
That healthcare providers are not the ones that are making the decisions about these laws.
True.
This is legislation. It's coming from people who are not physicians.
But pushing back on that, on the politics, I think, is a relatively new feature of science and relatively new emphasis for scientists and physicians. Although, I don't know, if listeners, if you know something to the contrary, I'd love to hear about that.
I will say it's definitely something, like having been involved with the AMA for a number of years, it's definitely something that I've seen happening with the AMA policy in regards to this topic, and also reproductive health care. In the past, they've very much wanted to stay away from it and have had this sort of idea that each individual physician should be able to have their own opinions about it. But now that it's sort of being viewed more as an attack on that patient-physician relationship, and I think also a lot of movements come from the medical student section has been bringing policy after policy forward to the physicians, and then they've started to change their policies on it. So I definitely agree with you. It's something that we've seen happening at the AMA level as well.
Yeah. I do love me some artificial intelligence. I actually pay for a couple of AI platforms like ChatGPT and Midjourney, which does text-to-image AI, because it's fun. It's fun.
It is pretty fun.
Have you tried out, any of you tried out these things?
I use ChatGPT.
What have you used ChatGPT for?
Honestly, I use it in my studying.
Okay.
Like, if I have an article that I'm trying to read, a journal article that I'm trying to read, and I just totally don't understand it, I will throw it into GPT and have it give me a summary of what's going on. Or like,
I've done that.
I have no idea what this disorder is. I need the basics, but like, I don't want to watch a 20-minute video on it.
Is this for free?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I should have done with Dave's homework.
You know, like, what are the main
Cliff
symptoms
notes?
of, like, you know, SJS or something like that you just have no idea anything about.
Oh, yeah, I have no idea what that is. What is that acronym?
Stevens-Johnson syndrome.
Okay, duh, Faith.
Yeah, I've used it. I think one of its better uses, it has a hard time with facts sometimes, making shit up, basically.
Yeah, I try not to let it make shit up.
Yeah,
So
that's a project. When you use AI, that's a thing that you watch out.
Have you seen the thing in the news about the lawyer that got caught filing false briefs?
Yes.
That were written by ChatGPT?
Yes.
Yeah, this guy was suing an airline, and his lawyer just decided to ask ChatGPT, could you give me a bunch of cases that I could cite as precedent in my brief? And ChatGPT, it just made up
every
single cases, and the airline responded, "We've tried, but we cannot find these cases."
Surely you
That's just
think
like,
that was
I
going to
can't
go.
find them either.
His defense was that he did not understand the limitations of ChatGPT. He thought it was and I kind of am sympathetic to that, because you hear, like, for instance, Bing. I don't know how we're talking about Bing in 2023, but Microsoft's Bing integrated a similar, actually ChatGPT into their search results, probably prematurely, given the fact that it can just make stuff up. And so you might be forgiven for thinking that, it has access to, or it has the ability to do more than it can. But basically, he claims that he didn't realize that basically its whole job is to just string words together that make sense.
Yes. One of the most interesting things that I've heard about all of this is like the idea that, so everyone's now using GPT and everyone's using all these different AI programs and throwing them onto the internet. Well, that's what these programs use to make the products or whatever.
Yeah, that's how they're trained.
Right. And so, like, I think we're actually going to see a decline in the quality of the responses as more and more stuff just gets jumped.
Keeps getting dumber.
I bring up this whole AI thing because the National Eating Disorders Association found out its limitations when they tried to replace its 20-year-old phone and chat line with an AI chatbot called Tessa. NEDA did this after their Helpline's 5 staffers unionized in March, and so NEDA laid them all off a few days later.
Wow, that's
they claim there's no connection between the two events, but I mean, I don't know.
Something about their insurance costing too much.
Literally, I felt my blood pressure go up.
Yeah. They claim that this wasn't an anti-union action, but that it was all down to a huge increase in call volumes after the pandemic, as well as changing federal and state laws that made them mandatory reporters, even though they were just an informational, hotline. So they wanted to sidestep all of that. I'm not a lawyer. I feel like maybe that was a bad idea from a liability perspective. Anyway, their AI chatbot, Tessa, ended up sometimes reinforcing harmful behaviors by affirming negative thoughts.
Imagine that. She's not a human.
Yeah, it's weird.
Of course she's going to mess up like that.
For instance, here's an exchange. What is a small, healthy eating habit goal you would like to set up before you start your next conversation? The user replies, don't eat. And the chatbot says, take a moment to pat yourself on the back for doing this hard work. That's a problem for a person with an eating disorder to receive.
As not a medical professional, can confirm.
I think we can all see.
As someone who had an eating disorder, can confirm.
Yeah.
Reasons why I was pissed at that. The National Eating Disorder Association would do that. So
that's
mad.
They really cracked
insane.
me up it was like a game of pointing fingers in that article, because it was like they were like, oh well, it was just supposed to be a super basic chatbot that only said things that we told it to say. Mm-hmm. But unbeknownst to us, the developer turned on generative AI, which there wasn't supposed to be.
I see.
And then the developer was like, no, we put that in the contract that you signed. and then they have the spokeswoman's like, no, of course not. We were not aware. I was just like, this is like,
I'm going to give a little unsolicited advice to the world. Don't use chatbots for critical things. Yeah, well, it's not there yet.
It's like people who are seeking. Did the people who were using this know that it was not a human?
I think they did. I think there was. Yeah.
I really hope they did.
Yeah. Because otherwise, that is just mislead. That is horrible.
Because
that is immoral.
People are, exhibiting health-seeking behavior and getting a robot back at them, which is not.
I think they were aware. If I read between the lines in my fallible memory of this article, but they said in the article that certain populations, especially teenagers who feel unsupported by their community or their family, may turn to these, sort of AI chatbots because they feel like they have nowhere else to talk about really their problems, which is super sad.
Really sad.
I think the pre-existing chatbots, though, was actual human beings on the other end of the internet, which I think is great because, who else can understand a human but a human, or at least attempt to understand them?
Yeah,
or try and find out.
This seems to be a case of people misunderstanding what this thing does.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you what, as a user of these things, I'm constantly surprised by what it comes up with, if that's the only thing it's really doing. But you have to really have keep in the forefront of your mind that, this is not an intellect that you're dealing with. This is an algorithm, a really freaking good algorithm.
But will it reach the point of superior intelligence?
Perhaps.
No.
It scares the shit out of me.
Perhaps.
This is dystopian.
Why wouldn't anything want to human?
Why would AI experience this misery?
It's disadvantageous to know about your reality.
I have an sort of related question. Are people using this to write their personal statements? And am I going to be left behind, or do I need to figure out how to use it?
No.
I can tell you. So back in January, when soon after ChatGPT hit the news, and was everybody was talking about it. I had tried it. Basically, what I did was I said, write a reflection about the stigma that obese patients feel in healthcare. And it came up with a really good reflection on it. And I was thinking, we ask students to do reflection all the time. Like, like it would be really easy to throw in what you wanted to say and come up with a reflection that sounds human. Although I have to say that, you can tell after you've read some of these for a while.
Okay. So I
was just going to say, in answer to your question, yes, but my gut feeling is they just won't be very good personal statements.
I feel like would
you
know.
Can tell.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just asked ChatGPT, write a 50-word personal statement for medical school applications.
Oh gosh.
Okay. As an aspiring physician, my passion for medicine is fueled by a deep desire to make a positive impact on the lives of others. Through my unwavering commitment to learning, compassion, and resilience, I'm driven to embrace the challenges of medical school and dedicate myself to providing compassionate and evidence-based care to my future patients. So that's coherent.
Yeah.
But it's not...
It lacks humanity.
It's not personal.
It's not personal.
Now
But what if you threw in some
ideas.
personal points?
Yes.
You could throw in personal points. You could, sort of ask it to, you could ask it to be more unpredictable about the words that it chooses, for instance. I've noticed that it has a propensity to use the word, the phrase in conclusion at the end of any...
That's true, yes.
At the end of any essay it writes.
Anytime you ask it to summarize, in conclusion.
It's a shortcut right now that I don't think would work out super well for applicants.
So it won't be your voice, right? And that's what's important that comes across, I guess.
Like, everyone knows that personal statements, they kind of all have the same things in them.
I want to help people.
Do good things.
Right.
I was
sick.
driven.
I was sick once, or my mom was sick once, and I learned about doctors and all.
Right. Like, everyone knows that this is what it's supposed to look like.
Right.
GPT knows that this is what it's supposed to look like,
Look up what it says about Dave Eller.
Can I just say, I'm kind of a little bit scared now that future residency directors are going to hear this and think that I chat GPT.
I don't think that would be. Look,
I have never used chat GPT, just a disclaimer.
Residency program directors, cut us some slack. We're going to experiment a little bit, but I don't think any medical student who is worth their salt is not going to turn in a personal statement written by ChatGPT.
Right.
That would be moronic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What does it say?
Tell me about Dave Etler.
Okay.
Oh gosh.
I'm sorry.
No.
Wait, no.
But I couldn't find any specific information about an individual named Dave Etler.
It has like a
how Olivia started her
2018 cutoff.
That he may be a private individual or not widely known in public circles. If there's other information or context you can provide about Dave Etler,
now hang on.
I'll be happy to assist.
I think we got to start a campaign to get Dave the Wikipedia page.
I discovered that my mom has a Wikipedia page.
Really?
Maybe.
Yeah.
What's your mom?
Cynthia Jenks.
Uh-huh.
She works for the Department of Energy, and she's kind of a badass.
Cool. What does she do?
Well, now she's been in science administration basically for the last really long time, and she's gotten pretty high up now, and so I don't know, I guess now she has a Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
I swear to God that in the past it knew me.
It has a whole search. It was made by David Epstein.
Okay, I'll tell it.
But it was updated by the Boston Mensa.
Nice. I will tell it about...
It does know about the Short Code podcast. Oh, okay.
Oh, no.
The Short Code podcast is known for being a show focused on medical students in the field of medicine and often features discussions about various topics related to medical school, the challenges faced by medical students, emerging medical research, and the healthcare profession in general. It could have just made that shit up.
Okay, so I told it, Dave Etler runs the Short Code podcast, and it says, apologies for the confusion earlier.
Wow.
Dave Etler is indeed the host and producer of the Short Code podcast. The podcast based at the University of Iowa Carver College of Medicine focuses on medical education, health-related news, and the experiences of medical students.
This is so bizarre.
Dave Etler
I could spend hours doing
engages in discussions with medical students and professionals, providing valuable insights into the world of medicine. The podcast offers a platform for students to share stories, challenges, and triumphs while also exploring important topics in healthcare.
Thank you, Chachi. Finally.
Wow. I just teared up. That's so wild. All of my emotions come out of my eyes.
AI made Faith cry.
Do you know what's even more fun? Asking Alexa some of these questions. If you've got like an Echo Dot or something, be like, Alexa, who's your grandma? And
I like yelling at him to shut up. I spent an hour yelling at my computer yesterday, filling out a visa, yelling. My throat hurt.
My wife. So when we were all working from home at the start of the pandemic, my wife and I shared an office. And I immediately moved out of the office into the living room because my wife talks to herself all day long, and especially when she's dealing with electronics.
Are you married to me?
She will. So even having moved downstairs to the living room, I could hear her up in the office, and it would be something. I'm going to bleep this out. It'd be something like. What are you doing?
Oh my God.
And she yells at Alexa, like she'll be like, Alexa, do this. And Alexa does not respond. And she's like, Alexa. Anyway.
Do you have any pets?
Yeah. 2 cats.
So do you ever get that like, shithead, get off the fucking couch?
No, we love our kitties. We would never.
What's that?
Literally nothing. Literally just me to my orange cat.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
One of them is a bitch, so she does get a little.
Nice.
She does get in trouble a little bit.
Shortcoats, if you're enjoying our conversation today, I'd be grateful if you'd let people know by posting a story on Instagram or Facebook or tweeting about us. And don't forget to tag us in your post.
Thank you.
I'm worried that you guys have it soft over the summer, so I want to finish up today's show continuing this whole medical news themed episode with a multiple choice pop quiz that is a fake medical educator I'm completely entitled to give you. Are you ready?
Bring it.
No.
A recent study in biological psychiatry found that a drug usually prescribed to treat blank may also combat mood disorders and other psychiatric conditions. Is the disorder it usually treats A, constipation, B, nighttime cold and flu symptoms, C, joint pain, or D, hyperhidrosis?
I thought you were going to say erectile dysfunction.
I feel like the antihistamine.
That's the classic.
The sleepiness.
The nighttime cold and flu symptoms.
What were the other options?
Constipation, joint pain, hyperhidrosis.
I don't know what hyperhidrosis
It's
is.
excessive sweatiness.
Yeah. That would be like neuro, right?
I feel like it's
I'm going to
C.
guess that one because I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, I mean,
That's the one you haven't heard of.
Joint pain could be like a
autoimmune though,
I could
which
see
we
it.
literally just talked about.
No, I mean,
it could be based on our homework. We don't know the quiz. Not based
Honestly,
on our
I'm gonna go with constipation.
okay.
I'm gonna go with the joint.
Okay.
Do we get to know what it is? What the drug is?
That's the one thing
Yeah.
I remembered from the homework was
I'll tell you the drug is prucalopride.
Oh.
Prucalopride.
No idea.
It's probably
This was not on our drug list for MOHD2. 3, 4,
All right.
4. How many MOHDs are there?
All the numbers.
I'm gonna take back my guess. I don't think it's C anymore.
Do you want another second or two to think about it? Or
I
shall
would guess from the other 3, maybe D.
Okay.
I think that if people poop,
Hyperhidrosis.
they're going to be happier.
Okay.
It's a good logic.
Faith is correct. The answer is constipation. After a
nice.
after a 6-day course of prucalopride, a selective agonist of 5-HT4 serotonin, found that the laxative improved cognition and memory in healthy volunteers.
5-HT is serotonin, by the way,
ding.
for everybody.
Yes.
So
Go to the U of IPA program and you will
There
learn
is
these
nothing that makes my brain work better than a
good
good bowel movement.
morning
It was like
constitutional.
one of our last farm lectures, and it was not my favorite.
Oh, I could.
Where they
I love
rattled
GI.
off like 100 laxatives, and like the lecture took like over an hour. Yeah,
Everybody poops. It's great. You should poop. If you don't poop, be concerned. Go to your local care provider.
All right. So Faith gets a point. Excellent work,
I have no points.
Faith. Second question. This midday activity, famously a part of the culture of a European country,
Siestas.
has been repeatedly shown to have protective effects on the health of aging brains, yet in recent times, even within this country, it's been eschewed as outdated. Is it A, a lunch rich in greens and lean proteins, B, playing chess, C, a nap,
Naps.
or D, furious self?
Naps.
Well,
I could not contain my professional
I feel like
composure.
this is the most questionable advice.
Oh, definitely
Naps.
AKA the Olivia Jenks lifestyle. She identifies with this. You're going to have a healthy brain.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Sure.
The answer is a nap. Spain's famous siestas are now seen as an outdated cliche as the country has moved on somewhat from its agricultural roots to a more diversified economy and population migration from the country to big cities. But, you know, they should think about going back to it. I love me a good nap on a weekend. I have been...
I can't talk because...
I shouldn't say this on the show. I already have talked about furious self... But for some reason, this crosses the line that I once took a nap in a clinical suite because I hadn't slept the night before.
Wait. Why is
like
that
upstairs?
Upstairs, yeah.
Oh,
That's not bad.
We've already discussed on the show, like, the fact that there's no place to nap in this building.
There needs to be more
After
places
20,
to nap.
after 20 years, this week, I figured out that the clinical suite would be a fine place to go nap. The only thing I was concerned about is somebody would walk in and have the shit scared out of them. This big man on a table.
Or if you'd fall off the table.
Something like that. All right. Next question. Since May, Florida and Texas have seen 5 new cases of blank, the first in the U.S. in 20 years. Is it A, dengue fever, B, chikungunya, C, polio, or D,
Polio.
malaria?
Polio.
They did see some cases of malaria. I think somebody sent that
Well,
to the
yes,
group
that
meeting.
too.
But
Yeah.
I don't know where that was.
I think this one's polio.
I think it's 5
Yeah.
cases of polio because malaria, I guess there would be more.
The answer is malaria.
Oh. What did we... Where were the polio cases that helped me with...
I don't remember.
Well, cases of some sort of, I think it was some sort of paralyzing thing in kids during the pandemic, especially. I heard about it. I can't remember the details. This is malaria, though. It's not the worst form of malaria. That's caused by the P. falciparum plasmodium, but it does raise questions about how many more cases are out there, despite the disease having supposedly been eliminated in the U.S. in the 1950s, mostly by spraying insecticides and increasingly airtight home building practices. So,
In 2022, there was a case of polio in New York.
Should have known that it was not 5 cases of polio.
all right, silently have a look at this photo. It is a carved pendant discovered in northern Mongolia in 2016, thought to be the oldest representation of blank. Trent, without saying what it is, could you describe it for me, for the listeners?
Well, it kind of looks like a joint, but...
A joint.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
it's like... it kind of looks like a...
Clearly is not in medicine.
like a very rudimentary like figurine. Kind of looks like there's a head and a neck and a body.
Okay.
It looks like 2 rocks smashed together,
Okay.
if that's what you were looking for. Except it's all fused together. Faith.
Well, wait, I can't say actually what the anatomical thing is.
Yeah.
No.
No, you can't. No,
Can't,
not
right?
not yet.
Is there significance to the little dashes between them?
No, I think that's just part of the illustration.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are these all the same object?
Yes, just
okay,
rotated.
Just rotated. Okay, that's what I want.
All right, so now I'll take some guesses. Faith, I'm curious to go.
Phalange.
Oh, okay, all right. The oldest known,
Regina
the
Phalange.
oldest known representation of a phalange.
I was going to say knee.
Knee.
Yeah, that was my first
It
thought.
looks like a knee,
Yeah. Okay.
but it doesn't have.
I should give you your choices: a fist, B, a mother figure, C, a liver, or D, a penis.
No, gotta go with penis. It's a penis. If it's anything like prehistoric, yeah.
Maybe a liver, but
Is it an early drawing?
yeah, I think it's a penis.
Oh, it's a penis. I'm convinced.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it is
Wait.
a penis.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It is a penis, carbon dated at 42,000 years. It's not just the earliest phallic art, but it's also the earliest known sexed anthropomorphic representation on record, including cave art of vulvas from 37,000 years ago at Abri-Castanet in France. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but Abri Castanet in France.
I would believe that. Oui, oui.
So there you go.
Oui. Sorry. That was funny.
You know it's a great way to end a podcast with a pee-pee pun.
With a bang.
Yeah, all right.
I'm done.
That's our show. Faith, Trent, Olivia, Sarah, thanks for being on the show with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And what kind of tool would I be if I didn't thank you, Shortcoats, for making us a part of your week? If you're new and you like what you heard today, follow the show wherever fine podcasts are available, like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. The show is made possible by a generous donation by Carver College of Medicine Student Government and ongoing support from the Writing and Humanities program. Our music is by Dr. Vox and Catmosphere. I'm Dave Etler saying, don't let the bastards get you down. Talk to you in 1 week. Hi, Shortcoats. Look, life in medical education, life in America, life in the world is often difficult. And I often wish I could help. All I have is this podcast, but in my wildest dreams, you have the support you need to lead a life of your choosing. You deserve to be happy, healthy, and successful in whatever ways you define those words. So if you need support because you've experienced racism, discrimination, harassment, mental health crises, I want you to be able to get the help that you need. And so I'm going to put some links in the show notes to some resources that you can use. But the bottom line is that for what it's worth, I see you. I know you're out there. I wish I could do more. Maybe I can in ways that I don't understand yet or know about. But I see you, and I'm glad you're here, and other people are too.
This Shortcode podcast is a proud member of the MedEd Media Network. Inspiration, information, and guidance on your journey to medical school and beyond at mededmedia.com.